Hello, welcome to Spelling & Sons Woodworking. My name is Alex. In this particular video, we're going to be looking at the Metabo HC260C Planer Thicknesser specifically. We're going to take it out of the box, we're going to put it together because it comes in several parts, and then at the end, we're going to just do a few test cuts and see how it performs. So let's get into it.
So no surprise really that job number one is to take it out of the box. Next on the agenda is to install the legs. I found it easiest just to tip it on its back or tip it upside down and then just insert these legs into the slots and tighten up the bolts, nice and easy. You install these little rubber shoes and then on to installing the casters, which are supposed to go on the outfeed table side, which is not immediately obvious, but if you look at the drawing on the front of the manual, you'll work it out. And once those wheels are in place, you flip the whole thing over and get ready to install the infeed table. So grab the Allen keys that you need, and then you're going to undo these 4 bolts. And the plate on the right hand side that I'm just doing there actually does stay in place, and the infeed table slides in between the plate and the actual body of the thicknesser. And this left hand side plate and bolts, they come off completely. So once that infeed table is in place, the bolts on the right hand side are simply tightened up, and on the left hand side the plate is put back over and they're tightened up as well. Now here comes the fun bit, which is actually attaching this infeed table adjustment. All of those washers that come on the rod need to come off in a particular order, which you can sort of see in this manual. For a better picture, if you look in the supplementary manual, it gives you a much better description of how to do this. So they all come off. You insert the rod, as you can see in this first little section of the infeed table, and then the first and second set of washers are then put back on in the order they came off, back onto this rod. At that point, you're going to insert and thread the rod actually through this little housing that you can see me doing here until it comes through the other side and you're able to get the last set of washers on and in place. And then just tighten up all the grub screws, and fingers crossed you should have a working infeed table. And don't panic if you don't. I mean, this literally took me 3 or 4 attempts to get it correct and working, so just persist and it will work eventually. Next up is inserting the handle that actually adjusts the thicknesser bed. Now this just comes in a few little bits and then is just bolted into this little hole here. The bolt is tightened up, and then there's also a grub screw that needs to be tightened as well, otherwise the whole handle will fall off, and I speak from experience. Next up, we're going to install this chip chute. Now this simply slots into this little groove here, and then once it's seated properly, it's held in place with these 4 self-tapping screws. Then you should have 2 self-tappers left over, and they actually help hold this little red-handled mechanism in place, which allows you to control this chip chute either in surface planer mode or thicknessing mode, which will hopefully become abundantly clear when you start using the machine. On to installing this startup switch. This is simply held in place with these 4 screws, and then you're also supplied with a cable tie to, tie the cable in place. Next up is installing the outfeed table, which simply is put into position over these locating pins. And then this right hand handle there actually engages a micro switch, which allows the machine to turn on, which is worth noting. Now the fence, it actually comes pre-assembled pretty much in the box, but it just needs a little bit of love and a little bit of tightening here and there to get it working and solid. Now, installing the cutter head guard. This is, again, it's a little bit fiddly, but Metabo do supply you with the correct Allen key, and this literally just bolts into the end of the outfeed table, as you can see here. And once that's in place, you just simply slot the guard into position. And then hopefully, if all is working, it should move up and down. Now, there is one more micro switch which actually, if you're trying to use things in surface planer mode, needs to be engaged properly. Now this little groove that you can see me pointing at there needs to be in the correct position, and it's pretty obvious where it goes. but you just need to make sure that it is, once you actually lift up the thicknesser bed, that it does actually lock in and engage like I do right there. And at that point, it should allow you to turn the machine on. So there you go, she lives and she's working. If yours doesn't work straight off, then it probably means that those micro switches aren't engaged, so do double check those. Now this is me just cutting this little bit of CLS in surface planer mode. The fence itself did take a little bit of adjustment to get it to 90 degrees, but obviously I wasn't expecting it to be perfect straight out of the box. And this little sequence I just left in so you could see how to actually change it from surface planer into the thicknesser mode. And overall, I must say, so far I'm pretty happy with my purchase.
So, there we go. 2 hours later, she is assembled and working correctly. Not the easiest of things to put together. These instructions aren't the best, I must say, but in 2022, Metabo have supplied some supplementary instructions, which make things like assembling this in-feed table adjustment a little easier. Still not the best, but better than it was before for sure. Now onto the serious business of how it cuts. Well, as you can see, it's done a great job of making this rough bit of CLS perfectly square on all four sides, which is awesome. It did take a little bit of setup to get it that way, and in the future, I will do a video on how to set this machine up correctly to get it to cut as accurately as this. But for the moment, thanks very much for watching. I hope it's been of a help. And if it has been, please don't forget, as always, to like and subscribe to this channel, and I shall catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching again.